Hello, everybody. And by everybody, I mean I honestly have no idea how many people are here right now. But welcome to Horsehead Weekly, week number 2. We are here, and a lot has happened. We had a whole week of football. I now know some things. I'm now sold on some people I definitely was not sold on before. So yeah, I'm here and I'm ready to go. And welcome everybody. I'm sure more people will be trickling in as the video goes on. But hey, this is uh this is fine right now. So starting off week number 2, the same way we've been doing it over the years. We go back to week number 1, and let's take a look at what happened last week. Uh, just high scores across the board, and I will get to that in a minute. But first, I ended up falling to Doug in a very, very close match. Uh, Came down to the wire, and I just did not quite make it there. Steve ended up putting up an absolute dominating showing, which was really bad for Mike because he put up really good numbers, but just was not enough to get there. I think he was like fourth or something in the league, and he just happened to run into number 2. A bit more of a fair match, I guess you could say, between the Cali Raiders and O'Doyle Rules. James ended up dealing Dave a loss, and then Dave also managed to give himself a strike by just not being up to snuff this week, despite good players and a good team. The Battle of the Mats was the first battle of the year for these two, and Matt M ends up falling to Matt S in another very close match, and both putting up fine showings. Then again, a bit of a lopsided match here with Malcolm riding the interesting combination of players that he has. A lot of Browns on his team, which last year people would have laughed at, but this year, hey, the Browns are fine. They look like they're going to be a decent team. So he ends up taking down Sean. So welcome to the league, Sean. This is how it goes. Going to get a lot of losses this year, I think, because you got to play me again. So that's at least one more. Anyways, moving on to Jerry and Nick, and Jerry ends up taking it, 131 to 114. So not a lot to discuss about standings and stuff like that, but that's something I'll get to in a minute. First, let's look at these big numbers, because these are giant. These are crazy big numbers. Last year, the average team scored 115 points. The highest average in any given week was 125 points. And we were slow starters last year, with 106.4 being the average for the first 2 weeks, because people were still trying to figure out who's good this year, who's bad this year, and stuff like that. But and Malcolm ended up having the high score week 1 of 128. We demolished it this year. The average team scored 145 points. For those of you who aren't good at math, that's bigger. We averaged more points than the high score was week 1 of last year. And yeah, we added another spot, so I took away 12 points, assuming that was about the average for the IDP slot. And 133 points, still outscoring on average the high score from last year, and that's pretty crazy. 27 more points than last year without the IDP, and if you add it in, then we're almost 40 points more than last season. And if you look at Nick's team, he had the lowest score of this week at 113.8. That would have been good for fourth last year. And again, that it's skewed because of the whole the whole thing with the IDP, but still, I mean, that's saying something. And speaking of numbers, the Eliminator is back. Yes, that's right. The Eliminator is back, and we have 4 people who have gotten strikes. No one can be eliminated in the first 3 weeks. For those of you who are new or weren't paying attention last year, the way it works is every single week, a number of teams will be given a strike. 3 strikes, you're out, and these strikes are determined. The number of people who get strikes is determined on how many people are alive. So there's that little chart to the right. It says if there are 9 to 12 people alive, 4 people get strikes. If there's 6 to 8, 3 people. 4 or 5, 2, and 2 or 3, 1. basically setting it up so that as it gets far early on, we're just going to be eliminating a bunch of people, or at least giving a lot of people strikes, mostly because there's, a bigger range of scores you can get in order to survive and not get a strike. So, it should be a little bit more punishing. And then as it gets down to those final three, every week one person's going to get a strike. So you're really just like showing down with these other guys, trying to figure out who's going to have that little bit of an edge to, survive another week without getting a strike. So this is it for this week. Dave and Matt, the brothers, they both get strikes, which is not a good thing to start off with. Nick, as I said earlier, did not have a good team, and Gabe just 1 point away from surviving, but he did end up missing out on that because of Jerry, and he ends up getting a strike as well. Jerry and Matt S. both breathing a sigh of relief, I'm sure, after they look at the scores on Monday night, because they both were very close to that line, but they ended up just getting across it, and then the top half of the board, all fairly easily got through. So, moving on to the standings, we start off in Skullhouse. I'm the one who took a loss, and it was a divisional game, so that's not good for me. I got another divisional game next week, but, so I at least want to go 1-1 in those so I can have a chance, and not starting off 0-2 with 2 divisional losses, because then I'm basically just hunting for a wild card spot at that point. In Kathy's Kids, the teams that were the 3 of the worst last year, they all finished the season, I think, under 500. They all got a win their first week, which is great, and great for them. The Outsiders did the opposite. They were all very strong last year, if I remember correctly, especially with the garbage rocket and all that. And they ended up all taking a loss. And over in the Insiders, Steve ends up coming roaring back. Welcome back to the league. I'm here to win. Takes himself a W, and the other 2 end up getting a loss. So that's how that goes. Moving on. So once all the dust settled on the week, everyone sat down. They started looking at how much their fab budget was. Started trying to figure out what they were going to do, and this is how it ended up working out. Dave ended up throwing down $36 in week number, like the first week of real waivers, for Philip Lindsay, the running back out of Denver. And man, that's quite something. He looked good. He's small, so I wouldn't expect him to play for the entire season, just because he can get hurt. But he definitely looks like a Danny Woodhead type. And if Danny Woodhead has shown anything, it's definitely he's going to be really good until he gets hurt. So, kudos to Dave on snagging him a full $13 over Malcolm, who is still $6 north of me. Not to be outdone, Malcolm then threw down $27, which was $19 more than Mike, and I was 5 behind that. Man, that's quite something, especially considering the fact that it looks like Fournette is trending towards playing this week. So that could be $27 that could have been spent elsewhere throughout the season. But if you have a really good running back and you're looking at the situation, you need the handcuff. That's just how it ends up working out for him. So $27 for Malcolm to get TJ Yeldon. Jared Cook ended up being quite the competition, 13, 11, and 10, but Jerry ended up becoming the winner of that one, taking him home. Malcolm spent $13 on Philip Dorsett. So that's another, $8 more that he didn't have to spend. He spent $6 on Will Dissly. No one else put even a bid on him that was for any kind of money. So that was quite, So Malcolm torched a lot of cash this week that he didn't need to, but he saw guys he liked, made the value judgment, and just other people weren't there for him. Other people that you can take a look, and if you want, you can pause the video. If you're live with me, then I'm sorry. Just take a quick look. People who jump out at me is like Nyheim Hines, somebody who I thought should have been drafted but wasn't. Jalen Richard. I think he's gonna be, maybe a flex, and if they end up having Lynch just go down or something, I think he can definitely be a PPR, low RB2, high flex, something along those lines, which could have some value elsewhere. And then, just looking up and down, that's all the people I really want to talk about. So this brings us to the remaining budgets. At the top, we have Steve, who has yet to spend $1. I don't think he's spent $1. I don't think he's had a trade. He's just like, hey, I just drafted my team, and it's the best team, and I'm just going to ride it out. And you know what? Sometimes that's just good enough. That's good enough, and that's how it's going to work. We got Dougie over there with $99. So those two are not really spending a lot of money. And then on the other end of it, you have the two guys who have spent a ton of money so far. Dave down to $64 and Malcolm down to 56. Man, you guys gonna be hurting in a couple of weeks if somebody breaks out big. You're not really gonna have a chance for it. But just good luck to everybody out there in the fab. This brings us up to what's going on next week. I am, as I said before, finishing up my first round of divisional games in the first 2 weeks. Probably should have scheduled that better for myself instead of just opening with that, but hey, here we are. So it's Gerald versus Mark, and that's going to be a good time. We're going to be together down at the Jets-Dolphins game watching that, and we'll see what happens. So I think it's going to be a good time to watch him both be happy and sad whenever Rashard Jones and Kenyon Drake do good things, knowing that he's facing them. We also have Maddie versus David. For those who don't know, those are brothers. So good luck to you guys in the first of the brother battles for this season. Doug ends up playing Matt. Sean ends up playing Nick. With both of them getting off to a fine start, both getting around 10 points each after the first game of the week. Malcolm is playing Mike, and Mike got 9 points from Mixon, which is more than, he's going to be getting over the next couple weeks with Mixon going down. And finally, it's James versus Steve, with James getting off to a crazy good start with A.J. Green catching 3 touchdowns in the first half of that game. Man, James just continues to look like he has a dominant team this year. The game of the week is Gabe versus Nick. I just think that these are two teams that really need to get a win. It's a divisional game. Both teams are 0-1. If you start off in the league 0-2, that definitely is a bad start. And also start off with a loss in the division, also not great. These are also funny enough, two people who have lost a starting running back from the draft. Gabe losing McKinnon and Nick losing Le'Veon Bell. So they're both trying to find replacements for those guys. This is if you want to just look at the two teams quick, you can see it's going to be a close match. I think that this is going to be one that comes down to something like does James Conner end up getting another 30-touch game, or does Jarvis Landry go off against a New Orleans defense that looks super suspect? I mean, he also has David Njoku, so he's definitely leaning on the Cleveland offense over there. But hey, we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be really interesting to watch, and I'm going to be watching this one with interest all weekend. So now, for those of you who aren't familiar with this, every week I do I don't know if it's a special segment or what I want to call it, but basically it's where I just kind of do something, some cool stats or something goofy. And this week it's the team name game, because I'm looking at some of your team names and I'm just not a huge fan of them. Not a huge fan. So I came up with some new team names for you guys, and hopefully y'all enjoy them. These are also some pretty terrible puns. And I've actually gone through the trouble of renaming the divisions as well, because I think it's some of these names are cool, like Skullhouse and Kathy's Kids. I think those are they're there, but I think they can improve. But the Insiders and Outsiders, those were always just kind of throwaways, and I'm not entirely sure why we stuck around with them. And so let's see what we can do for new names. First, the Outsiders. I think No Mercy is. I just think that's a pretty cool team name to start off with. But hey, maybe Mike would feel a little bit left out sitting there in that team. But we'll see. Let's see what else I have. Dave Matthews Mike. It has all of your names, and it sounds like a thing that a guy says a lot of vowel noises into. When he's singing Ants Marching or whatever. He's I think that's his most popular song. You just making all those vowel sounds. It's funny. Just pay attention. Uh, I got no follower. Cool. I got someone following me. I have no idea who it is. Uh, but yeah, that's pretty cool. And his brother and me after the podcast. I think that's pretty funny. For the insiders, Nick and the Newbies, it sounds like some kind of like a band or like dance troupe or something like that. I don't know. It's got a nice little ring to it. Past, present, and future, because you have the past with Steve making the comeback, the present, which is Nick, he's been a staying force, in the future, which is Gabe, who just showed up. I don't know. I think that's pretty cool. And name unrelated, because this is the only group that don't have people who can consider themselves brothers. It's just three people who aren't brothers in any particular way. Next up, we have Skullhouse, which is the one I'm in with my two brothers for my fraternity. And see you next Sunday. I mean, that's it's a little play on other things. I don't know. I'm trying to keep this thing rated PG, so I'm gonna leave that one alone. Get Wrecked. I think that's pretty cool. And this is the football that we actually like. So we like this football versus other footballs which we don't really enjoy that much, but we put up with because we have to. And that's we set a pledge and everything, and it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. And finally, we have Kathy's Kids and Fam Squad, definitely a name that we could throw out there for them. The Basement Boys, because I know you guys spent a lot of time hanging out in the in the basement, growing up, doing basement boy things, just like hanging out, doing being basement boys. If I say it more and more, does it make it funnier? I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing with that. And finally, it's "Come Sail Away with Me," like the song. I don't know. I think there's some potential in some of these. So, get at me in in Slack or on Discord or something like that, and just give me a quick little like, hey, could we change that name? And if everyone in the division can come to an agreement on something, then yeah, definitely we'll change whatever division name to whatever you guys want it to be. So moving on. So I've decided, because I'm showing everyone's team, because the names don't make sense if you don't see the entire team, because I have to be like, hey, look, they have these players, and that's why I'm doing a play on these players' names. So I'm doing the rankings with them, and this week's rankings are the hot take edition. I've thrown out some hot takes over the course of this season already, and so I'm going to try to incorporate those in this a little bit. But first, before we continue on with this, I have to do a quick word from our sponsors. And this week's sponsor is Saquon's King Kong Porta-John. For when you need to take a giant ape-sized dump and you don't have a facility nearby, use Saquon's King Kong Porta-John. We'll put one in your lawn. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna have weekly sponsors now, in case you guys were wondering. So if any sponsors out there, you want to make something happen, you want to have a little conversation with me, we can talk some money, make something happen. You can have yourself right here, right before the rankings, when everyone's really tuning in. So yeah. So this week we have Saquon's King Kong Porta-John. So finally, the worst of my hot takes. We're gonna start off with those. Mahomes is not a good fantasy quarterback. I am wrong. I will admit it. I make mistakes. Not often. Almost never. I'm basically infallible is what I'm saying when it comes to fantasy football. But with Patrick Mahomes, I have made a mistake. The throws he was making, the arm strength on him, his ability to roll out of the pocket and to read defenses, he looked phenomenal last week. And yeah, I know a lot of people are going to be hating on him and being like, oh, well, he literally basically handed off 2 touchdowns to Tyreek Hill. That doesn't matter. If that's something that's in their playbook and that's what they're going to do near the goal line, they're going to do those little tosses, then Patrick Mahomes, you're going to be a good fantasy quarterback. You're definitely a QB1 at least this year. So, Patrick Mahomes, congratulations. You have an apology from me. And that brings us over to team number 12, Matt S. So 2 team names I came up with him. The first one is he needs a walker. which is because he's not here anymore, but he had Delaney Walker, and Delaney Walker needs a walker now. And the second one is cousinsjoiner.com. And in case you're wondering, I didn't just come up with some names. I also came up with some pretty cool graphics, or stole them from the internet. Mostly stole them from the internet. What am I gonna? I'm not gonna lie to you guys. But yeah. So cousinjoiner.com. We broke up, but she said we could still be cousins, and I feel like this could be your little logo that you use on fantasy football ESPN times. So now just to look at his team, do the analysis of it. Um, you got Kirk Cousins. I feel like he's one of those guys who is always going to be safe. He's always going to give you around 20, 22 points per game. I don't think he's ever going to do anything too crazy with it. At least not for a little bit. I think later on in the season when he gets more comfortable with the offense, he gets more comfortable with his receivers and stuff, he could definitely break out and become top 5. But for now, I think he's absolutely fine. You have Antonio Brown and Larry Fitzgerald, who are both, really good players. You have Jordan Howard, who's, I don't want to say he's in a timeshare because literally everyone's in a timeshare right now. Like, the number of people who aren't in a timeshare, I think, is what? James Conner, DJ, Zeke. Is that it? Like, it's not many people. Like, it's basically nobody. Um, Gurley, of course. But yeah, basically everyone else is in a timeshare, so I don't want to hold it against him. But I feel like his timeshare is going to be a little bit more weighted, especially because I'm not a huge fan of what they're going to be doing, and I think there's going to be a lot of Cohen on the field at the end of games because they're going to find themselves behind early on. Uh, the rest of your running backs, just to run through them. James White on a team with a ton of running backs that no one ever knows what's going to happen with them. Mark Ingram currently still suspended and going to be for a couple more weeks, so you really can't give any points for him yet. I mean, yeah, you're going to start creeping up with him when he gets closer, but for now, I'm still waiting on him. And that's it. 4. Is that 4? That's 3? 3. You have 3 running backs on your team. That is not enough. You are one injury away or one dumb move away or one benching away from literally just putting 2 people in your running back slot and going, well, I hope this works. Like, that is not good, especially when you have Antonio Brown and Larry Fitzgerald as your top 2 wide receivers. You don't need to be holding on to people like Ted Ginn Jr. You have, I understand you holding 2 tight ends because, you're trying to figure out who's going to be good out of these guys. I mean, I think Eric Ebron's, could be a top 10 guy. I don't think Antonio Gates has much left in the tank. He's probably just playing because they asked him to. I don't know. But I really don't like the idea of you holding on to, all these wide receivers. If I was you and I was running your team, maybe I would take a seat and just look at some people, walk up to Nick because he would absolutely die for this opportunity and say, look, I got Antonio Brown. I'm looking for some running back help. What can you do to help me out here? I'll give you Antonio Brown and, whoever else as a wide receiver you want to get rid of who's not Larry because you're going to need him as your number 1 or number 2, depending on what you can get. And just make a deal with him. For now, I'm so afraid of your running back depth and so at your bench wide receivers that I really I have to put you in the basement for now. And I feel like you have the tools and the ability to make it work. I've seen you do it in the past. I just think for right now, I'm just going to have to sit back and just put you down at number 12. Which brings us up to number 11, which is Nick. Nick, some team names I came up with you. Frithjof Nance, Niels Bohr, Archibald Hill. Because they play off really... Actually, they don't make any sense with your team. Yeah, your team doesn't really make any sense with any of these guys' names. Who are these guys even? What is the thing that they all have in common? What did all these people do that puts them in the same category of people? I don't know. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. For now, let's just go back to your team. You have Tom Brady as your quarterback, who is somebody who I'm still waiting for him to drop off. I'm every year I say this is the year he's gonna start not being great. Are you still being great? I'm trying. I'm just trying to will him there. Um, I mean, this week you're definitely in trouble because he's playing against Jacksonville, and I think he's gonna definitely not be a top 12 guy. But hey, he's Tom Brady. He makes miracles happen all the time. You have James Conner, who, as you can see, even ESPN calls an RB2. This has not been photoshopped or put in paint because I can't afford Photoshop at all or anything like that. It is literally just right there on ESPN. You can read it yourself. Um, but then the rest of your team, like besides T.Y. Hilton, it's spooky. Like Chris Hogan, you really banked on and took super early in the draft, and he hasn't really come to anything. You're looking at the Baltimore running backs to be your running back two, and that is not something I would be leaning on. Um, I would rather have Jay Ajayi as my running back two because at least he's going to be something. I think in that running back two range. But right now you got him. You know, I don't know. Like your flex to me looks like it's going to be an absolute garbage dart throw nonsense every single week. Like you basically just have to try to pick the guy of your guys on the bench that are going to be able to do something. And I know but Mark, that's what the flex is. The flex is the guys who do. I get it. I get it. But what I'm trying to say is, I don't think that this is how it's going to work out for you. I don't think you're going to be able to pick a guy consistently every single week, especially when you also have to do the same thing. Because I'm not like I feel like you're going to be looking at like Ty and Bell and Tom Brady as like your only real locks in your lineup, and then you're just going to be kind of shuffling guys in and out, trying your best. And this team probably isn't even going to last a week before you have like all new people anyway, so I don't even know why I'm bothering. I'm just going to move on to the B class. This is a take that I thought was fine. It's a fine take. It's not great. It's not a good. It's not even necessarily good, but it's fine. I think it's a fine take. There's James Conner as an RB2 at best. I'm going to stick by it for another couple weeks. Let's see how it works out for me. I just think he had one good week in bad weather when they want to take the ball out of Big Ben's hands, and they just fed him 30 touches a game. I don't think he's going to be able to keep that up. If he does, good. Great for him. He's got a great story. I'd love to see it. I'm just not sold on it yet. And to start that off, we have Dave. Dave, his two team names are Lucky Buddha, because he's, I had to do something with Buddha Baker. Like, the dude's got a great name, and I actually doubled down on him with, he's the Baker and the Hitchens, to have the all IDP team name. I just think those are two fun guys, and I found this Zen saying from the Buddha of doubt everything and to find your own light, and you definitely didn't do that with your team. That's why you're in 10th. You didn't do that. You didn't find your own light. You listened to nobody and except for your own heart, and your heart was speaking Japanese or something. I don't know. Because here you sit right now. If you don't have Freeman going this weekend, what are you gonna do? You're gonna put Adrian Peterson. You're gonna hope that he can actually survive a second week. I mean, yeah, sure, he probably can, but like that's really spooky. Devontae Freeman himself, even when he was healthy in the first week, still didn't get you that much. And even if he does play this week, I'm not thinking he's gonna be that great. He's probably gonna have play like second fiddle to Coleman because he's been hurt and everything like that. Zeke, the only reason he was good last week is because they just kept handing him the ball. And yeah, I know that's his thing, but like that's an offense that just if they just decide let's just put 8 in the box and make us get just have this beat us in the air, I don't think that's gonna work, and I don't think that offense is gonna make it. It's gonna fall apart. I mean, do I have to keep going? I mean I can. Adam Thielen is on an offense with a guy who doesn't tend to produce great wide receivers. He only produces good wide receivers because he throws the ball around so much. That's just Kirk Cousins' way of doing it. He's going to spread the ball to everybody. You got Allen Robinson on your team as your wide receiver too. I mean, it should be Kenny Stills. That's just a whole nother reason for me not to like your team. You got Kenny Stills on the bench when you got Allen Robinson in. Allen Robinson's playing up against Seattle. And Allen Robinson's not the type of guy who can be shifty and can beat what Seattle has at their cornerbacks. Their cornerbacks are good at, hey, the guy's going to run in a straight line, keep up with him, and then stop him. That's what Seattle cornerbacks are going to do. You need Kenny Stills in there. Dude's going to be good this year. He's going to keep being good. You also have Marquise Goodwin, but I don't know what his deal is. He might be out for a while. Marlon Mack. I don't know. I just feel like your team is going to be the type of team that's going to it's spooky. It's better than the other two, but it's spooky. So we're going to move on to Doug. And Doug, the first name I came up with was Mac Daddy, but then I realized you can't really do that with you because, that's kind of Malcolm's whole thing. He calls himself the Mac Daddy and all that. So then I was like, oh, you can be like Rodgers' knee, like, making fun of you because Aaron Rodgers is hurt. But then I was like, oh, no, that hurts me too because I have Adams. And if Rodgers goes down and I have to deal with DeShone Kizer throwing my, one of my stud wide receivers the ball every week, he's not a stud wide receiver anymore. So finally I decided that the best thing for you is just call yourself Get a Chubb. Got a Chubb. You can make it work with that. You can have a good time with that one. Find some stuff, and I got a picture here. Apparently Twitch said that the TOS they introduced it so that it automatically censors any images that are not appropriate for Twitch viewers. So I'm sorry I can't show you the picture, but if you want, I can Snapchat it to you later. Now to look at his team, the reason that Doug's down here this low right now is because of really one main reason, and it's once again the running back depth for him. You got Dalvin Cook, and I think Dalvin Cook's going to bounce back. I think one bad week's not going to sink him, and I don't think Latavius Murray is going to eat into him too much. But my God, Duke Johnson did not look like Duke Johnson last week. He looked like a guy who's just blah. Like, he wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing out there. And I don't know how much that goes down to they don't need him, because if they have, Jarvis Landry and Josh Gordon and stuff, they can just throw the ball around a lot more. They got Njoku. Like, they have all these other targets. They don't really need to use him to pick up yardage when they're, in the hurry up or long third downs and stuff. They can just use him as a pass blocker. And plus, Hyde is able to catch the ball more than people would think, so maybe they're going to use him more for that. I don't know. Duke Johnson really spooks me as your number 2 running back, as does Brandon Cooks as your number 2 wide receiver. When I look at the rest of your wide receivers, I'm not sold on them. I do not like Devontae Parker. You got Geronimo Allison, but he's the third guy, and yeah, it's still Rodgers. He can make a third guy work some weeks, but I'm not really sitting here super excited about Geronimo Allison every single week as a starter. And how are you ever going to be able to decide what weeks he's going off and which weeks he's not? I don't really know. Robbie Anderson, yeah, he could be your wide receiver too, but I don't know. Cooks could sell me on him this weekend. He could show up and he could do great things against Arizona. Patrick Peterson is shadowing him and he's able to make it work. That's great. But if not, Brandon Cooks is going to be the guy who every single week they're going to look at the team and they're going to say, okay, Brandon Cooks is the guy. We'll put our best man on him, make it work. We'll see what happens. So, I don't know. I'm just not a fan of some of the guys you got going on, and it's just got a little bit of a spooky team, dude. So I'm putting you down at number 9. Moving on to number 8, we're up to Matty M. And I noticed a pattern when I was looking over your entire team. You have a ton of Chargers and a ton of Philadelphia Eagles. Hey, if you're just a fan of those 2 teams, that's great. I mean, they're 2, pretty competitive teams this year, so good for you. You picked good guys, or good offenses to invest in, even if it's just that. But, whew, man, did you get caught holding LaShawn McCoy on your team, huh? Man, that is just another guy who I just look at and I go, no. I cannot get behind LaShawn McCoy being a thing this year. The way that offense looked, I don't think they have an offensive lineman on their team who can actually block a human. Like, I think that if you put me in a game as a nose tackle or just a defensive tackle in a 4-3, I think I could probably get some pressures on the quarterback over the course of a game. And it's not because I'm like small and I can fit between the guys or something like, or can dive between their legs or whatever. Just because I don't think they know what they're doing out there, and that doesn't look good for LaShawn McCoy. So that's something I'm a little bit worried about. Uh, Corey Davis, still waiting for him to have that breakout. Nelson Aguilar did not, look great. Again, he had a ton of targets, but he didn't really do anything with them. I don't know. I'm still not a big fan of Kareem Hunt because I think that with Patrick Mahomes out there now, the way I'm looking at it, he's just going to be slinging the ball around like crazy. He's going to be great. So I'm not worried about, the rest of that offense. Kareem Hunt's the guy I'm worried about being the one left out because I don't think they're going to do much with him because they have too many other great weapons. But you do have some really big bright spots. I mean, you got Phillip Rivers and Melvin Gordon, and both of them guys look pretty good. And they both have great matchups this weekend, so you're going to have a lot of points coming from them again. You got some defensive guys who I think are going to be consistent, consistently giving you some decent points. You got Wentz and Edelman coming up later, so that's why I have you up ahead of these other guys. Because when I look at your team, I'm like, man, those are some spooky guys. But then I look at the rest of your team and I'm like, you got some guys coming back. You got some guys who are going to make some stuff work. And all you have to do is get Carson Wentz to have one or two good games, and you can just sit there and just be, and you can get a wide receiver 2. You can fill in that running back 2 spot with him. You can package him up with somebody else and ship him off somewhere and get something decent back in return. So that's why I have you at number 8. And I forgot I have a pattern I'm supposed to be doing with this, where I'm supposed to tell you your team names, show you the picture I made, and do that. And I don't know, I really like the idea of you doing Rainbow Sherbert. Schobert. Schobert? Schobert. I think it's Schobert. Anyways, so I made this little mock-up for you, so if you wanted to, steal this, that's all fine with me. You can go ahead and do it. Throw this on up over on ESPN, and this can be your image for the rest of the time. Just do a quick little screen cap of her, and you're all set. So that's Mad M. Number 7, we have Gabe's. He's got a lot of, he's got people like Crabtree. He's got Ogletree. He's got some tree folk going with that. So I was like, oh, maybe the arborist. He's got, he also has Sterling Shepard. So wood for sheep. That's just a classic reference. That's just a good time. I don't want to, go anything beyond that. That's just a good time. That's just a good joke. And then, of course, he can always say, IR first. Because you know what? You are first, Gabes. You are first. You had the first, I think, top 3 round guy to get hurt, and we don't have that anymore as an incentive, but if we did, it'd be all yours. So instead of doing that, I ended up going with wood for sheep because clip art is something that you can do. And I found this clip art of it looks like a sheep drinking. Is it wine? Because it looks like there's a cork on the floor there. I don't know. Whatever that sheep is doing, though, if you got wood for it, just, let it finish that bottle. So now to break down your team. Again, I feel like, unlike the people behind you, you have good players. You have good players in good positions. Your problem becomes filling those gaps, and I think you have the players that can make it work. I don't think you can rely on Austin Ekeler to be the guy who, hits 20 points a week as the second running back on the Chargers, but you definitely have enough players that you can definitely move, you can make your running back 1 and 2 work, and even your flex. And you can sell Austin Ekeler later on if you want to sell him, or you can hold on to him and see if Gordon gets hurt. He doesn't have a history of it, I don't think, but if he ever goes down, then you're going to have a guy who is, top 5 running back in the league for a little bit there. So that's definitely something. Other than that, where are your weak spots? I'm not a huge fan of Michael Crabtree. I think that they're going to start using John Brown a little bit more because I think they like John Brown more. The way he was used last night, as well as the way that he, just been playing and stuff like that, is if he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be getting a lot more Flacco's targets, so that's why I'm not a huge fan of Crabtree. I'm also not a huge fan of Jarvis Landry. I don't think that his usage is going to be much more than you saw last weekend. Um, yeah, this week he could be great because he's got New Orleans, but he's just not a guy who I'm a fan of. I think he's, a wide receiver too, if that. Um, and then when you look at the rest of your guys, you really do see, Sterling Shepard and Allen Hurns, and these aren't people I'm like jumping up and down clapping for. Rashard Matthews. I mean, these aren't people I'm excited for. Uh, so maybe you want to be the guy who goes after Antonio Brown, tries to make or something like that, tries to make some kind of a deal with somebody, so you can get, a wide receiver 2 or a wide receiver 1 if you can make it work, in order to just, really balance your lineups. Because I think you have plenty of running backs, which is typically the problem in this league, is not having enough running backs, enough good running backs actually. But but you can get by. I mean, you can make it work. So that's why I have you up at number 7 games. And then in the A class, which I think is a pretty good take. Like, this is when I'm like, girl, you hit the nail on the head with this one. And that is the A class. Alex Collins is way overrated. I watched this guy play last year. I was looking at some of the tape and stuff like that, and I'm just like, the dude, when he runs, he takes only what he's given. And when I look at the other players that they have on their roster, they do the same thing. So why would they stick with the guy Alex Collins, who's molecule better than Buck Allen, and Dixon's apparently just never going to be a thing. But how can you take those people and compare them to Alex Collins and say, oh yeah, but his fumble risk is perfectly fine? You can't do that. You can't sit there with that, which is why I was really low on him, and I think I'm being vindicated here after 2 weeks. I think that offense is going to end up going through Buck Allen in the future, and they have wide receivers who are decent now, and I think that his workload is going to be very, very dependent on them having the ball in non-critical situations where they don't need to have a good possession running back who's just not going to fumble it, but they need a guy who can be a little bit better. Which all those caveats, I just not a fan of them. And the first person to fall into that category of that's a pretty good take, well done, is Steve. I'm personally a big fan of calling him last season's Bell, because that's what he was. He went away for a season. He took a season off. He was like, nah, it's not worth it for me. I'm just going to take a season to chill. And then he came back this year, and he's looking really good. That's probably what's going to happen to Bell. He's just going to take a season off or 10 weeks off, come back, do what he can to prove to everybody that he still got it, go out in free agency and do good stuff. Maybe he signs again with the Steelers like Steve did. Who knows? And he also has Rudolph, the healthy tight end. Rudolph, the healthy tight end. His foot's not broke. I probably could have done better if I took more than 2 seconds to think of something. But yeah, so, congratulations to you for having Rudolph, the healthy tight end. And as you can see in the back, you have Olsen, who is very sad that he cannot participate in the reindeer games this year because he is on reindeer IR. So for Steve, we have again. This is one of the first teams from 6 on. They're really teams that when I look at, I'm like, oh geez, these are just already well put together teams. And you can see that. I mean, we're not to that like top tier yet, where the teams are like, oof, this is like a perfect team. So you have Matt Ryan on your roster still, and some people in your on your bench that I'm just looking. I'm like, those are people you can probably cut, like Calvin Ridley. But just up and down your entire thing, you have just really good players. Like, I mean, Randall Cobb, again, he has that same issue with Geronimo Allison, but I think Randall Cobb is more likely every week to get that that second person on Green Bay wide receiver core who is good, get that boost and end up becoming a top 10, top 12 guy. I'm not really worried about Diggs in that first week. again, I think that that's a team that's going to grow a little bit slower than other people, and eventually that team's going to pop off near the end of the season. Um, I mean, Mike Evans is, I don't think he's going to have a, 50 points scored by his offense every single week, but, you know, a lot of people are saying that when Winston comes back, he's going to be very good. And if Fitzmagic has that magic for 3 weeks, then I'm a big fan of Mike Evans for the season right now because I think he can really sustain something that's a top 10 level, if not compete up there in that top 5, try to get in a scrum with some of those elites. But yeah, but when you're looking at your weaknesses on your team, I mean, you got Kelvin Benjamin, who I think is going to be useless this year. Kevin Ridley, same thing. Theo Riddick, I don't think he's going to get that much usage because I don't think any of the Detroit running backs are going to be good until they just give the load to Kerryon. And then even then, if Jim Bob Cooter's still the main guy calling the shots, I'm just not a fan of that because the Jets were saying that they just looked at Jim Bob and he would throw a play into the field and then go, "Oh, cool, it's this," and they were just jumping routes left and right. It was crazy. So, if they get a better coach or coordinator rather, and they get some better stuff going, then maybe you can make the Riddick work. But for now, I'm not really sold on him. Same with Galladay. I'm a little bit afraid of him, just because of the fact that if that offense is going to be as bad as it sounds like it's going to be, then I don't think you want the third wide receiver on the team, or maybe any of the wide receivers on the team, if they end up splitting touches as much as they look like they might. And also you have Peyton Barber, who I thought was going to be a good third running back for you, but he is the only alternate running back you have besides Crowell to Gurley. You're only carrying 3 decent running backs, and I think that's going to be scary for you going forward because if Barber doesn't perform great and they end up trying to make that a timeshare, or if Crowell ends up falling off or getting hurt or something, man, I think you're just going to struggle. But for now, I think you have a pretty solid team, and that's why you're at number 6. At number 5, we have Malcolm. The fact that number 5 in the league is a team with Tyrod Taylor at the helm going into this week is, I did not think I would see that ever, but here we are. But it's because you have Patrick Mahomes, and you're just playing a good matchup this week against New Orleans. If they're as bad as they were last week, then you're going to get a shootout in New Orleans, and you're going to have a great score because you got Tyrod Taylor, Josh Gordon, Michael Thomas, Carlos Hyde. Myles Garrett's going to see, a ton of plays out there, and I think he's going to be able to make it work. I think you got a good setup there. The reason that you're only at 5, because I do like a lot of the players on your team, is one, Royce Freeman's usage last week was spooky. Like, I thought he was going to end up being the guy. He was going to come in. He was going to get, 15, 20 touches a game, and he was going to run the ball, and it was going to be great. And then they just kind of shotgun approached it, and he ended up looking like, him and Booker were just kind of hanging out while Lindsey was doing stuff. Now, next week, Lindsey could turn into a pumpkin. He could get hurt. He could end up, not being the guy. They could push Booker to number 3, make Lindsey the third down back, and have Royce Freeman taking first and second down work. I don't know what they're planning on doing with that. But that's just a guy who I look at as being kind of spooky right now. And then you got Leonard Fournette, who, I mean, he's had injuries throughout his career. Like in college, he would get hurt and he'd get hurt and he'd get hurt. And now in Jacksonville, he's showing that he's not one of those super durable backs. And the fact that you had to drop so much money just to get T.J. Yeldon, that's going to hurt your future right there. You're already down to about half of your fab. So I don't know. So just looking at looking at your bench, you got Tevin Coleman, who right now is looking really good if Freeman doesn't play. But then you got, Trey Burton, who hasn't really come to, but hey, he could come to soon. Who knows? And I don't know. I just look at your team and I'm just like, I forgot I had an image for you. Uh, I mean, did you see your team? You have Gordon, Josh Gordon, and you have Royce Freeman. Oh, you also have the backup back Bonanza because you got a bunch of backup running backs. But like, how can you not use this image and just be like Gordon Freeman, Gordon Mac Daddy Freeman, Gordon Mac Daddy Freeman? My friend, I have named your team. Gordon Mac Daddy Freeman. Find this image on Google, make it work because this is your team. Coming up at number 4 is me. It's mostly there because I'm a homer and I love my own team more than I love yours. And all the players on my team, I think, are wide receiver 1, running back 1, top 3 quarterback, stuff like that. So basically, get wrecked. So two names I came up with were, it's my team's it's Kittle good, Kittle bad, a Kittle of each. I don't know, it's just a fun little wordplay. And then I got Rashad Jones and Me, which is another song lyric, but I've already been singing. My throat's hurting because I've been talking for an hour now. So I'm just gonna spare you guys the Rashad Jones and Me. I had to do it. You knew I was gonna do it. Don't act surprised. So coming back to my team, the core of my team is still DeAndre Hopkins and Davante Adams. However, both of which have struggling quarterbacks. One's hurt, one's just not looking that great anymore. Both of which are supposed to be studs, and both of which did not play necessarily like it last week. With DeAndre Hopkins only getting, you know, what he got, and Davante Adams only being a top 20 guy because he ended up being a touchdown. I mean, so I'm not sold. I'm not sold. I'm sold on them. I still think they're going to be great. I still think they're both top tier wide receivers. They're both in that upper echelon. But they're not playing like it this week, and hopefully, Davante Adams can play well against Minnesota. That's not something I'm expecting to have happen. But maybe DeAndre Hopkins can play well against Tennessee, and I can be, reassured a little bit there. But the rest of my team, I just kind of like where I'm sitting right now, especially with Gio sitting on, sitting there, like, licking his lips, thinking, ooh, I get 2 weeks to really prove myself, and then maybe turn that into a timeshare, and he can be, a good flex play moving forward if I need to. I still have Matt Breida, Jalen Richard, Chris Carson, Kerryon Johnson. Basically everyone on my bench is somebody who, if given the opportunity, I think could be a breakout. But right now, they're all just kind of hanging out on my bench, not doing anything, which definitely impacts my depth. But, I mean, for the next 2 weeks, at least I have Gio. If, one of my starters goes down or I don't like a matchup or something, at least I have something moving forward that I can use for that. And for those of you who like theater and stuff, Kittle Good, Kittle Bad, the Happy Sad masks. As you can see, I'm clearly an expert Photoshopper. So that is my team. And then finally, the top 3, the upper echelon, the S-Class. The Dolphins are a playoff team. Best take I've had in the offseason. Best take I've had this season. I don't know how anyone can dispute it. These guys are going to the playoffs. They're going to win their first ever playoff game since, Dan Marino, whatever, however long it's been since we've won a playoff game. And, that's just going to happen. We're a great team. We're going to do great things. Just deal with it. Number 3 is Jerry. It's not Jerry. Jerry's actually number 2. But for right now, I had him at number 3 because I didn't get a chance to switch the slides around and change the numbers on him because I'm an adult who's very busy and has a bunch of really important things to do with my life. So that's just how it goes. So for Jerry, ended up coming up with some fun names like Wary Cohen, which is what we have the image for. And, I think personally my favorite of all the names, Saquon Bosa. And someone goes, what's Saquon Bosa? Saquon Bosa, these nuts. Boom. Got him. I don't know. I just feel like that's just funny. That's just funny. I know I said earlier I try to give it PG, and I'm sorry if, you got kids that are watching, but you got to make a joke like that from time to time. But yeah, this is the first of the 2 teams that when I look at, I'm like, Oh my God, they don't have a hole anywhere. Um, I mean, I think between Jared Cook and Jimmy Graham, you're going to be able to find a tight end who can do something because they're using, old school tactics in Oakland, and I think that's what that means they're going to use a tight end for catching and stuff like that. It's going to be crazy. And even with your number two wide receiver down in Doug Baldwin, you're still able to field Keenan Allen, Golden Tate, and Amari Cooper in your lineup. That's really good. Like, those are three people who I think are going to be good. And I think Amari Cooper is going to come around this week. If he doesn't, then maybe that's when you can start to get worried. I'm not worried about Amari Cooper. Yeah, I think he's going to be fine. I think they're going to look at the way he was used last week and say, that's something that we can fix. That's something that we can improve on. And they're going to work on that. Your running backs are also, I think in really good shape with Saquon Barkley. He's going to put up like 15 touches for 40 yards, and then one touch for 60 yards and a touchdown. And that's where you're going to get every week, and that's good for 20 points a week. So, hey, that's what you get with him, and I think that's going to be fine for him. I think this week is going to be tough for him. I don't think he's going to do great against Dallas because they have a pretty good defense against the run at least. So, rough week this week, but I think going forward, I think Saquon's going to, he has that talent, and even in the future, I'm worried about how good he can become. And then you follow that up with a Green Bay running back of your choice, Tariq Cohen, if you think that's how the game script is going to go, or in the event that they choose to make the shift, or make it a bigger timeshare, or something happens. You got Spencer Ware, who you can throw in there, because I think he still has the talent to be, a top 20 running back if given the opportunity. And I don't see that happening anytime soon, but hey, it could happen. So, where are we going? Where are we going? Where are we going? I was like Googling pictures of where are we going, and I found this cute dog. I could not show a picture of a cute dog. You guys are crazy. But yeah, so I really do like Jerry's team top to bottom, and I think when, Joey Bosa gets back, your defense is going to look absolutely fantastic again. Although you did just lose C.J. Mosley for a little bit, so maybe I overspoke with that, but about your defense. But I really do like your team top to bottom because you got the depth and everything. You got a lot of running backs, which is what you need. I'm just a big fan of your team. And the real number 3 is Mike. I'm not even going to bother trying to rename your team. That picture cracks me up every time I look at your team. You're doing great. Keep up the good work. You're the only team that's fine. So Joe Mixon, huh? I mean, that's why you're down to number 3 from number 2. Because I'm still a big believer in Deshaun Watson. I just think maybe, looking across the field at Tom Brady, you're up against, the team that came in second last year. Maybe it got to him a little bit, and it also was his first game back. He wasn't phenomenal the first action he saw last year either, but after that first half of a game that he played, the next couple games he came out and he was phenomenal. And I think that's what you're going to get this week up against Tennessee. I think he's going to be able to slice and dice that defense. He's going to make it work, and he's definitely going to be somebody who's worth keeping around as a QB one. You have Christian McCaffrey and Joe Mixon, which are two good running backs. It's just they kept saying all offseason, Christian McCaffrey is going to get 20 to 30 touches every week, and then he goes out and he doesn't. He got 15 touches. I mean, he almost got out touched by freaking C.J. Anderson. That's not good. So they might try to ratchet up his touches, or maybe they were just trying to get people to game plan for the wrong thing with all their coach talk. Who knows? I'm just not a big fan of it. But yeah, the rest of your team though, I think it looks pretty solid. Even with the question marks at running back, which are not very very tiny. They're very tiny question marks. With Mixon's going to be back after a couple weeks, and I think he's going to be fine. If he doesn't lose, he's going to lose some touches to Gio because I think once they see him out there again, they're going to be like, oh, that's why I keep this guy around. So they're going to be giving him some more work, but and I think Christian McCaffrey will probably get more touches. I don't think they're going to just let him, be the guy who gets 15 touches a week and C.J. Anderson gets a bunch of touches. I don't think they're going to do that in the future, but who knows? But beyond those two running backs, the rest of your team is still solid. I don't know why you're starting Devin Funches on your team. That's just That doesn't make any sense to me. I feel like you can drop Devin Funches. You can, or maybe not drop Devin Funches, but drop him down to your bench. Drop Sanu, drop Ronald Jones, even just drop somebody and try to find somebody on your team off the waivers to be in that flex spot because you know you have a lot of players who can do stuff, but I don't know. I think you're definitely number 3 and maybe even a little bit lower. But just looking at your starters and stuff, I'm just pulled towards your team as being like, this is a team that could be really, really good. But this is your last week to show it to me. I gave you a week of reprieve, but if Joe Mixon becomes a bigger injury or something else goes wrong for you, or your team doesn't show up again this week, dude, you're gonna be dropping pretty good. You're gonna be at least down a tier, if not to the bottom of that tier. So just be warned. And number 1, James, my favorite pitcher for a team. James's team, I came up with the name of This Is Comerica, based on the Childish Gambino song. I actually stole that from my cousin. He's in a fantasy football league and he was showing me his team, and he was like, his team's name is This Is Comerica, and I was like, I got to use that in my bit this week. And the second thing I came up with is Green Hill Zone, because you have Green and Hill as your wide receivers, and I think that's just that's a good old school reference. So I went out and I found you a nice little GIF you can use, uh, which is it's one of my favorite GIFs of all time, to be honest. I don't know how you beat. Look at this. Look at this. How is this not like the top page of Reddit every day? Just people posting this and being like, "Gotta go fast." Oh my God, this is art. This is true art. This is something that's gonna be in a museum in like 100 years, and they'll be like, oh yes, and the early 21st century GIFs were very popular as an artistic medium, and this is one of the finest examples. Um, but yeah, no, that's just fantastic. So, moving on to the rest to analyzing this team, which it's just the best team. Like I only put him in the same tier as those other two because I didn't want to make another tier because I'm lazy. Like your top 3 wide receivers are Tyreek Hill, who he's I had some worries about him. I thought, yeah, he'll be a wide receiver 1. He's shown me that he could be a top 5 guy. He's gonna be. I got a lot of top 5 guys right now still, but he can be one of those top 5 guys. AJ Green, yeah, he can be one of those top 5 guys. He caught 3 touchdowns last night. That's crazy. Alvin Kamara, a lot of people were worried about him. How's his usage going to be? What's he going to be doing? How is he going to be able to hold up to it? Yeah, he answered all those questions with exclamation points, and he is doing great. Cam Newton, he's still Cam Newton. He's still doing Cam Newton things. And I think this year, if you have a quarterback that puts up 20 points a week, that's going to be fine. Because I don't think the studs are going to be putting up, anything too crazy. And there's a lot of people, there's 10 people who can put up 20 points a week. So I think having Cam Newton's fine, as long you don't have one of those top 3 guys, but it's fine. It's gonna do good things. Derrick Henry, I'm not worried about. And even if the world comes to an end and he ends up becoming the bane of your existence, sitting there putting up terrible points every single week, you got the capital to make a trade and to make a move. You have the ability to throw in like Bilal Powell or Ty Montgomery if they end up becoming decent. Nyheim Hines, I think he's shown that he's going to be the pass catching running back out in Indianapolis and can maybe become a little bit more if he, really puts his mind to it. Oh, and then who else do you have on your bench? Rex Burkhead, Sexy Rexy, the guy who can do it all out in New England. And the guy who, can play the slot even if you need him to do that. Oh, and you have Alshon Jeffrey, a great wide receiver who is going to come back soon. And he comes back soon, puts up some good stuff. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to have 4 great wide receivers, and you're going to be able to deal one or play matchups or whatever you want to do with it. James, you have a great team right now. Do not mess it up and come in 5th. That's my advice to you. You got a great team. Keep it up. And that brings us to the end. My throat is killing me because I talked for over an hour now. You guys are probably bored out of your damn minds because you just watched me talk for an hour. But yeah, no. So I'll see you guys next week. Let me know in the comments. And by comments, I of course mean the Slack channel, what you thought. Comments like, "Oh, you're such a homer, putting yourself forth." Yeah, I know. I do it on purpose, just to mess with you guys. Chill. But I want to know what you guys think of, the advertisements, the little bit I did, all the analysis at the beginning. Anything else you want to see? Stuff that you think is, not really necessary. Just let me know what you think, and yeah, I'll see you guys next week for another edition of what do we call this? Fantasy football this week with horse heads, or I don't remember. Yeah, yeah, whatever. All right, bye.